So is wholesaling real estate illegal? The answer is no, but you need to make sure you're complying with your state's laws. Real estate laws are constantly evolving, but being a smart wholesaler is being able to comply with all of these laws. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into a question that's been circulating the market for quite a while. Is wholesaling real estate illegal? If you're looking to dive deeper into the legality of wholesaling real estate, here's some resources to check out. Now, my favorite is going to be the Bigger Pockets Forum. They've published several blog posts, website, forums, and even podcasts of talking about the legality of wholesaling real estate. Second one's going to be National Association of Realtors. Now, they frequently advocate for regulations against wholesaling, but in certain states, you can find regulations based on the state if you need a license. And of course, they're going to be very biased and hate wholesalers, so just keep that in mind. Now, the third one is going to be your real estate laws in your state's commission. Now, many states offer real estate guidelines in their commission, especially in states like Illinois or Oklahoma. Now, especially in laws where they're stricter, but in my state, luckily, they're not as strict. Now, regardless of where you're wholesaling, here's some best practices to keep you compliant. Now, the first thing is going to be disclose, disclose, disclose. Now, in this deal, you can do it however you want. Now, I don't recommend you don't actually have to disclose to the seller that you're assigning the property. Usually what I've seen is if the motivated seller is motivated enough, they usually don't even care. But make sure you have a buyer already lined up pre-hand so you don't have to do all these open houses and get these crazy showings, because that's when wholesalers get a very bad rap. I've heard of people doing 20 to 50 person open houses at these sellers' houses, and they get so confused. That is how wholesalers get a bad rap, and that is why these laws are in place, is because wholesalers are doing the wrong thing. You need to have an end buyer in place right away and disclose on the contract that you are an investor and your intent is to fix, flip, or resell the property. Now, the second thing is going to be avoid false advertising. Don't advertise properties to cash buyers that they don't know anything about. Make sure you disclose that there's bad foundations if there is. Make sure they know what the roof is like. Make sure you tell them maybe what you got it for. That way, if they care, just let them know. Because in the end, they're going to find out what you made on the assignment fee anyways. So make sure you avoid false advertising with your cash buyers, because that's how you keep cash buyers coming in all the time. And the third thing is check your state laws regularly. Real estate laws are constantly changing. Just because something is legal in your state today doesn't mean it to be tomorrow, especially with wholesaling real estate. Now, the National Association of Realtors often releases things and things can change them. So maybe keep an eye on the news and see what comes up with them. Now, the fourth thing is I would consult with maybe another wholesaler in your market. Now, if you're doing this, especially full-time, or if you're a flipper, or if you just happen to get a constant lead flow, check in with them and see what they do on their paperwork and what works for them. Somebody who's familiar and done it before and never had any issues is going to be your best resource. Now, usually, especially if they've done more deals than you, they're going to have probably problems they ran into along the way. So they're usually my favorite people to go to, especially if I'm in a new market or a new state, or what I recommend to a lot of people. Now, on the flip side, there are multiple states that let you wholesale freely without really any issues. Now, in most states, you can wholesale real estate without being a licensed broker if you're just doing regular activity and you're not engaging in brokering activities. Now, Texas is just fine with wholesaling as long as you use the contract assignment method instead of the double closing method. Double closing is essentially when you get the contract in title and 30 minutes later, you then sell it to the end buyer. Now, Florida is also another state that is very free with wholesaling. You just have to disclose contract stuff in paperwork, which is just like any state. You're never going to be able to get away from that, but Florida is an easy transparency state. Now, the key takeaway here is no matter when you're wholesaling real estate, just make sure you have the right paperwork that has everything disclosed in there. Basically saying you have an investor disclosure that you have the right to fix, resell, or flip this property. Now, let's dive into some specific states on different variations. Now, unfortunately, Illinois has been the most strict when it comes to wholesaling real estate. Now, back in 2019, Illinois passed a law that if you wholesale a real estate property for more than one per year, you need to hold a real estate license. Now, this was a massive shift because before this law, wholesalers could operate freely. Now, the Illinois Realtors Association pushed this forward as they said it would protect homeowners in certain situations. And of course, unethical practices. Now, the second state we're going to talk about is Oklahoma. Now, similar to Illinois, Oklahoma allows you only to wholesale one property per year, but if you do more than that, you need a real estate license. Now, Oklahoma lawmakers, they said that it would protect, with the real estate license, buyers and sellers in both parties of a transaction of a house being sold. And of course, they just wanted full transparency for both sides is their explanation. Now, the third state we're going to talk about is Ohio. Now, Ohio has tightened the regulations recently, and they do apparently require wholesalers to disclose that they're going to assign the property. And what I mean by that is assigning the contract and assigning the rights to the property. And they also must be transparent in their role in the transaction. But however, you can put this in paperwork and it'd be no big deal, but Ohio does not require you to have a real estate license. Therefore, you can do it freely as long as it's in paperwork. Now, this is where it gets crazy, but I'm going to talk about the state of Nebraska. Now, Nebraska takes things pretty extreme when they said that wholesalers need to disclose to home sellers on what they're making on their assignment fee. Now, this could lead to fines or even legal action, but coming from a guy who's done $50,000 wholesale fees, that might be a problem to most sellers. This is where we get into gray area and what you do here as a Nebraska wholesaler. Now, each state has different ways of interpreting wholesaling activity. Now, in these states, you could get fines or legal consequences, so definitely take this with a grain of salt. Now let's start with a quick refresher on what wholesaling real estate even is. Real estate wholesaling is basically when you find a motivated or distressed property, get that property under contract, and assign the rights to that contract to an end buyer. Now, in between this contract is going to be a middleman fee or what you'd call a finder's to make a profit. So instead of actually buying the property and dealing with all of that, you're acting as a middleman. The main difference here that you need to keep in mind is you're not selling the property, you are selling the rights to the contract. You're assigning your interest in the property for a fee. Now, the big question here, and pretty obvious one, is it legal? Now, the answer really depends on where you're conducting business. Wholesaling is legal in most areas, but you need to practice in areas that are most compliant. If you're not careful, you could be accused of brokering real estate without a license, which we don't want. Now, a lot of states recently are making requirements to have a real estate license to wholesale real estate. Some regulators feel that wholesalers should be licensed as it does act as the idea of a real estate agent, and they should be licensed by the state. If you found this video helpful, feel free to subscribe, like, and leave a comment below if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.